sumo wrestling is a sport of honor, tradition, and immense physical power. While most sumo wrestlers are known for their skill, some are renowned for their extraordinary size. Today, we're looking at some of the biggest sumo wrestlers in history, and later, some giants who were even larger than sumo wrestlers. Konishiki Yasukichi. Let's talk about Konishiki Yasukichi, the man who could probably cause an eclipse if he stood in front of the sun. Nicknamed the Dump Truck, Konishiki weighed in at an earth-shattering 287 kilograms. That's 633 pounds for those keeping score at home. Now, if you're picturing a freight train barreling through the sumo ring, you're not far off. Konishiki was all about using his size to bulldoze his opponents out of the ring. And when you're the size of a small car, that's a pretty solid strategy. But here's the fun part. This mountain of a man wasn't all just bulk. Konishiki had moves. His agility was like watching a bear do ballet. Opponents would think they had him figured out, but then, bam, he'd use a sneaky technique or surprising speed to take them down. At one point, Konishiki had to get custom-made furniture because regular chairs just couldn't handle his size. He was also a bit of a rock star, having released several music albums in Japan. Can you imagine this sumo giant holding a mic instead of throwing opponents? And if you took him to a buffet, well, the restaurant might run out of food. His legendary appetite is said to have devoured 70 pieces of sushi in one sitting. Now that's a meal fit for a sumo. He wasn't just a wall, he was a moving fortress. If you had to face Konishiki in the ring, what would your strategy be? Run for your life? Try to outsmart him with speed? Or maybe offer him 70 pieces of sushi as a distraction? Let me know in the comments. Akebono Taro. Standing at a jaw-dropping 6 feet 8 inches, Akebono Taro wasn't just a towering figure in the ring, he practically loomed over it. With a name meaning dawn, it's only fitting that Akebono ushered in a new era of sumo wrestling, becoming the first non-Japanese-born wrestler to earn the title of Yokozuna, sumo's highest rank. Hailing from Hawaii, Akebono didn't just use his height as a crutch. He was a blend of raw power and finesse, a true force to be reckoned with in the sumo world. When you're as colossal as Akebono, heads don't just turn, they spin. His matches felt like watching David versus Goliath, except in this case, Goliath was also surprisingly quick on his feet. He had the kind of speed that would leave you scratching your head, wondering how someone that large could move so gracefully while still tossing opponents out of the ring like they weighed nothing. But sumo wasn't enough for Akebono. He took his larger-than-life persona to pro wrestling and even mixed martial arts. Picture this, a man big enough to bench press your fridge in one arm while delivering a suplex with the other. Whether in the sumo ring or the wrestling world, Akebono's presence was impossible to ignore. Standing next to him was probably the fastest way to feel like a hobbit. Musashimaru Koyo. Musashimaru Koyo is one of those athletes that make you question if gravity even applies to him. Weighing over 235 kilograms and standing at a towering 6 feet 4 inches, this Hawaiian-born sumo legend was a force of nature in the ring. With a calm demeanor and powerful stance, Musashimaru became the 67th Yokozuna, sumo's highest and most prestigious rank, reserved only for the best of the best. When Musashimaru stepped into the dojo, you knew something massive was about to go down, literally. His opponents must have felt like they were trying to push a freight train in slow motion. Musashimaru didn't need flashy moves. He planted his feet, lowered his center of gravity, and bam! His challengers were left eating dirt. If there's ever been a sumo wrestler who could make an earthquake jealous, it's Musashimaru. But what really made Musashimaru a legend was his incredible endurance. Despite his massive size, he dominated the sport for years, racking up championships like they were Pokemon cards. And even after retirement, this gentle giant stayed connected to sumo, proving that once a legend, always a legend. If you ever shook his hand, you'd probably wonder if your bones were supposed to bend that way. If you're as impressed by Musashimaru's legendary strength and dominance as I am, make sure to like this video. And for more incredible stories about the world's greatest athletes, don't forget to subscribe. You won't want to miss a single one. Let me know if you'd like any changes or further adjustments. Osuna Rashi Kintaro. Osuna Rashi Kintaro. What a name, right? And trust me, he lived up to it. Nicknamed the Great Sandstorm, he didn't just tiptoe into the sumo world, he blew in like a desert storm. Born in Egypt, Osuna Rashi became the first African sumo wrestler to break into the upper ranks, and he did it with a mix of raw strength, size, and pure grit. This guy wasn't just competing in sumo, he was rewriting the playbook. Picture this, 150 kilograms of muscle, and not just any muscle, muscles that looked like they were sculpted from marble. Osuna Rashi didn't just rely on brute force though. His explosive power and strategic mind made him a nightmare for opponents who never knew what to expect. It was like watching a sumo wrestler with the mindset of a gladiator, ready to throw down at a moment's notice. And if you thought that was impressive, get this, he competed while fasting during Ramadan. That's right, while other wrestlers were fueling up, he was showing superhuman discipline. Just when you thought he was running out of steam, he'd tap into some hidden reserve and flatten his opponents. It wasn't just sumo, it was a spectacle. Kushu Katsunori meet. Kushu Katsunori, the Bulgarian powerhouse who made towering over your competition more than just a figure of speech. At 6 feet 8 inches tall, this guy wasn't just any sumo wrestler, he was a walking skyscraper. In a sport steeped in Japanese tradition, Kushu stormed in like a European giant, showing that you don't need to be born in Japan to dominate the sumo ring. With his basketball-worthy build, he shattered expectations and opponents alike. His height was a game changer. He could pull off throws that shorter wrestlers couldn't even dream of. Imagine stepping into the ring only to realize you're up against a human lighthouse. And the guy didn't just bring power, he brought star power. Dubbed the David Beckham of sumo, Kushu's charm and celebrity status made him a fan favorite off the dohyo too. But don't let the good looks fool you. This guy was a beast where it mattered. As the first European to ever win the Emperor's Cup, Kushu cemented his place in sumo history. He wasn't just about height, he had the skill and the grit to back it up. And let's be honest, if he wasn't dominating sumo, he probably could have had a successful side gig as a human crane. Takami Sakari Seiken. If there's one sumo wrestler who could make you laugh and cheer at the same time, it's Takami Sakari Seiken. Known as the Robo Warrior for his eccentric pre-match rituals, Takami Sakari didn't just step into the ring, he put on a show. Picture a robot trying to hype itself up for battle. That's Takami Sakari, slapping his face, puffing out his chest, and throwing his arms around like he was preparing for the fight of his life. And the crowd? They absolutely loved every second of it. Takami Sakari wasn't the biggest wrestler at 150 kilograms, but he sure was one of the most entertaining. His pre-match routines were pure spectacle, and fans would be on the edge of their seats just waiting to see what he'd do next. Once the antics ended though, he transformed into a serious competitor. He might not have always won, but he never failed to keep things interesting in the dojo. Despite his quirky antics, Takami Sakari had the heart of a true warrior. Battling through multiple injuries, he kept coming back to entertain and compete. Watching him was like seeing a real-life anime character, part comedian, part fighter. He may not have always taken the victory, but he left the ring every time with a smile, and a whole lot of fans cheering him on. Hakuho Show. When it comes to legends of sumo wrestling, few names carry as much weight as Hakuho Show. This Mongolian-born sumo wrestler wasn't just big, he was dominant. With 45 Emperor's Cups under his belt, Hakuho's reign was so overpowering, opponents must have felt like they were walking into the ring just to meet their fate. His dominance was so absolute, you almost expected to see his challengers waving a white flag before the match even started. At 6 feet 4 inches and 155 kilograms, Hakuho was a sumo powerhouse, but it wasn't just his size that made him great. His technique was razor sharp, and his speed was unmatched. Opponents would blink and bam, they were already airborne, wondering what just hit them. His fights were less about brute force and more like a tactical game of chess, where Hakuho was always several steps ahead. Beyond the ring, Hakuho had a presence that transcended the sport. He wasn't just a competitor, he was a living legend. The kind of wrestler who, when he entered the room, made everyone else feel like they were standing in the shadow of greatness. Even in retirement, his legacy looms large, continuing to inspire new generations of wrestlers who can only dream of reaching his heights. Takanoyama Shuntaro. Now, let's talk about Takanoyama Shuntaro, the David in a world full of Goliaths. Takanoyama wasn't your typical sumo wrestler. At just 98 kilograms, he was smaller than some of the sport's lunches, yet he fearlessly took on opponents twice his size. The best part? He didn't just survive, he thrived. Nicknamed the Skinny Sumo, Takanoyama was more ninja than brute. Instead of pushing and shoving like his massive competitors, he used judo-style throws and swift, clever moves to flip them flat on their backs. Watching him was like watching a magic trick. 1 second, his opponent was towering over him, and the next, they were staring up at the ceiling, wondering what just happened. What Takanoyama lacked in bulk, he made up for in pure heart and tenacity. He was the ultimate underdog, and fans loved every second of his matches. His agility and skill made him one of the most electrifying sumo wrestlers to watch. If he'd been born 50 kilograms heavier, he might have ruled the sumo world. While size is a huge factor in sumo wrestling, it's not just the world of sumo where massive athletes have made their mark. Let's move beyond sumo and explore some of the biggest professional wrestlers in the world. If you're fascinated by these incredible giants, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more amazing stories about legendary athletes. Stay tuned. We'll circle back to the largest sumo wrestler at the end of this video, Andre the Giant. Let's start with a man whose very name has become synonymous with size, Andre the Giant. Standing at a staggering 7 feet 4 inches and tipping the scales at over 500 pounds, Andre wasn't just a wrestler, he was a walking skyscraper. In the ring, his opponents looked more like action figures than actual humans standing next to him. When Andre entered the arena, the crowd didn't just cheer, they stared in awe at the sheer enormity of the man. But Andre was more than just a colossal figure. He was the gentle giant everyone loved. His legendary battles with Hulk Hogan are etched into the annals of WWE history. And his role as Fezzik in The Princess Bride? Well, let's just say the only thing bigger than Andre's size was his heart. He wasn't just a wrestler, he was a cultural icon. Here's a fun fact that might make your jaw drop. Andre once reportedly drank 119 beers in one sitting. That's right, the guy needed wine by the gallon just to feel a buzz. His massive size wasn't just his trademark in the ring, it was a lifestyle. Andre was a giant in every sense of the word, but what really made him stand out was his warmth, charm, and unforgettable presence. Paul White. Next up is a man who's quite literally larger than life. Paul White, better known by his WWE ring name, Big Show. At a towering 7 feet tall and weighing over 400 pounds, Big Show has spent decades reminding us what it means to dominate the ring. With fists the size of small boulders, one punch from this guy and his opponents would be seeing stars for weeks. But don't let his size fool you. Big Show wasn't just a slow-moving giant. At his peak, he had an agility that shocked everyone. Imagine a 7-foot, 400-pound man launching himself off the top rope. It was like watching a freight train take flight. From choke slams that could practically register on the Richter scale to moonsaults that left the audience speechless, Big Show knew how to keep fans on the edge of their seats. Outside the ring, Big Show's personality is just as big as his frame. He's not just a wrestler, he's an entertainer who has starred in films, TV shows, and even headlined his own Netflix series, The Big Show Show. Let's face it, unless you're ready to lose spectacularly, arm wrestling this guy isn't on anyone's bucket list. Giant Silva. Giant Silva is a man whose name alone gives away his monumental stature. At 7 feet 2 inches, he wasn't just a competitor, he was a human skyscraper looming over everyone in the ring and the MMA cage. Silva wasn't just about size though. This man was a jack of all trades, bouncing from basketball to professional wrestling to mixed martial arts like someone trying on different hats. In wrestling, Silva wasn't just known for being colossal, he had an eccentric flair that made him unforgettable. Whether he was slamming opponents or getting hilariously tangled up in the ropes, hey, being that tall isn't always an advantage. He always brought entertainment. His WWE career might have been brief, but he left an impact that can only be described as massive. Then came his MMA stint, where opponents must have felt like they were stepping into a cage with a giant from a fantasy novel. Sure, Silva didn't rack up belts, but let's be honest, just having a 7-foot-tall, 385-pound giant staring you down was enough to make most fighters rethink their life choices. Wherever he went, Silva's size made him impossible to miss. Viscera. Here is a man who seemed to defy the very laws of physics. Weighing in at over 500 pounds, this WWE icon brought a whole new meaning to the term heavyweight. His massive size made him a fearsome presence in the ring, and that supernatural vibe, complete with his all-black gear and those eerie white eyes, sent chills down the spine of anyone unlucky enough to face him. But don't be fooled by his size. Viscera could move. That's right, despite being over half a ton, this man had surprising agility. Whether he was delivering his thunderous splash off the ropes or laying down his infamous Viscera drop, Viscera made sure his opponents left the ring with more than just bruises. They left with a story. And let's not forget his unforgettable run as Big Daddy V, a name as intimidating as the man himself. Though Viscera's time in WWE had its highs and lows, there's no denying the mark he left behind, both literally and figuratively. His larger-than-life personality, matched only by his sheer size, made him a fan favorite. If you ever found yourself face-to-face with Viscera in the ring, one thing was certain: you weren't leaving without feeling the weight of one of the biggest men to ever step between the ropes. Hystack Calhoun. Let's dive into the legend of Hystack Calhoun, the original big man of professional wrestling. Weighing in at an astonishing 600 pounds, this Texas-born giant didn't just wrestle, he crushed his competition. Known for his signature overalls, cowboy hat, and the enormous horseshoe he carried into the ring, Hystack was a larger-than-life figure in every sense of the word. His nickname came from his days working on a farm, where he would sit on haystacks so large that they practically became his throne. Hystack wasn't just about size, though his bulk made him an immovable object in the ring. Despite his enormous frame, he had surprising agility and a unique charm that made him a fan favorite. His matches were spectacles, with opponents struggling to find a way to even push him off his feet. And when Hystack used his full weight for his finishing move, a massive sit-down splash, you knew it was game over for whoever was on the receiving end. Outside the ring, Hystack was a gentle giant, known for his easygoing personality and love for entertaining crowds. He became one of the most popular wrestlers of the 1960s and 70s, showing the world that sometimes being the biggest guy in the room is all you need to make a lasting impact. Whether he was flattening opponents or charming audiences with his country boy appeal, Hystack Calhoun was a true pioneer of super heavyweight wrestling. Beyond the world of sumo and professional wrestling, there are people whose size defies belief. Let's look at the largest humans ever recorded. Robert Wadlow. Now, let's talk about Robert Wadlow, the tallest man to ever walk the earth, quite literally. Standing at an absolutely staggering 8 feet 11 inches, Wadlow towered over everyone, making people look up to him, literally and figuratively. Born in 1918, this Illinois native grew so rapidly that by the time he was 8 years old, he was already taller than his father. At his peak, Robert Wadlow was almost as tall as a basketball hoop, and you practically needed binoculars just to make eye contact with him. But here's the thing, despite his immense size, Wadlow was known as the Gentle Giant. People would stop him on the street just to shake his hand, which was probably the size of a frying pan, or take a picture with him. Imagine the custom-made shoes this guy needed, over a foot long, and while his leg braces helped him walk, they didn't stop him from making an impact wherever he went. Wadlow's height, however, wasn't without challenges, as it stemmed from a medical condition that ultimately led to his passing at just 22 years old. But in his short life, Wadlow didn't just break records, he became a global sensation. Even today, his legacy as the tallest man in history stands as tall as he did. John Brower Minoch. Let's move on to John Brower Minoch, a man who holds the title of the heaviest person ever recorded. At his peak, John weighed a mind-blowing 1,400 pounds. That's nearly 635 kilograms. To put that into perspective, that's about the weight of a small car. Imagine carrying that much weight with you every single day. John's size wasn't just a number, it was a spectacle. But here's the wild part. Despite his enormous size, John was known for his sense of humor. He often joked that he had his own gravitational pull, making light of his situation even as his body grew larger, due to a combination of obesity and a medical condition that caused him to retain fluid. At one point, it took 13 people just to roll him over in his hospital bed. Talk about a team effort. Though John's size broke records, it came with serious health issues. Doctors put him on a strict diet, and while he managed to lose over 400 pounds, his condition still took its toll. John Brower Minoch's story is a reminder of the extremes the human body can reach, but also of the incredible resilience it takes to live with such a massive burden, literally and figuratively. Manuel Ube. Now let's talk about Manuel Ube, a man whose size made headlines around the world. At his heaviest, Manuel weighed in at an astonishing 1,316 pounds, making him one of the heaviest people ever recorded. Born in Mexico, Manuel's battle with obesity became global news when his weight reached such extreme levels that he became bedridden for over a decade. But Manuel's story wasn't just about his weight, it was about his incredible determination to regain control of his life. After years of being confined to his bed, Manuel decided to take action. He embarked on a strict diet, and with the help of medical professionals, he managed to lose over 500 pounds. His weight loss journey was documented in numerous media outlets, turning Manuel into an inspirational figure for many. Despite his size, Manuel had a big heart. He often spoke about his desire to live a normal life, and he even got married while bedridden, in a ceremony that was televised worldwide. Manuel's story is a testament to the human spirit's resilience. He may have been one of the heaviest people in history, but his determination to fight for his health and happiness was even greater. Sultan Kosen. Sultan Kosen meet the man who makes skyscrapers feel insecure. Standing at an unbelievable 8 feet 3 inches tall, Sultan holds the Guinness World Record as the tallest living man. Born in Turkey in 1982, Sultan's height isn't just a genetic gift. It's a full-blown superpower thanks to a condition called acromegaly, which caused his body to produce excess growth hormone. His enormous stature comes with both challenges and perks. But one thing's for sure, when Sultan walks into a room, everyone notices. Now imagine being so tall that walking through a door feels like squeezing into a hobbit hole. Sultan's shoe size is a whopping 22, so while most of us shop for sneakers, he's basically ordering custom-made boats. But despite the obstacles, Sultan always keeps a good sense of humor about his height, often joking about how easy it is for him to change light bulbs without a ladder. And playing basketball? Let's just say he'd never need to jump for a dunk. Though his size requires him to use crutches for walking, Sultan has embraced his fame and turned it into inspiration for others. Whether he's making talk show appearances or meeting fans across the globe, Sultan Kosen shows us all that sometimes being larger than life isn't just a figure of speech, it's a full-time job. Brahim Takula. Here is the man whose feet could probably use their own postal code. Standing at an incredible 8 feet 1 inch tall, Brahim doesn't just tower over people, he holds the record for the largest feet on a living person. His size 58 shoes, that's 15 inches long by the way, make finding footwear more of a mission than simply strolling into a shoe store. Let's just say he's not exactly browsing the clearance rack for sneakers. Brahim's teenage years came with a growth spurt that went straight into the record books. By his early 20s, his height shot up due to acromegaly, a condition that caused his body to overproduce growth hormone. Imagine walking through doorways sideways or trying to fit into a car like it's a compact toy. Yeah, that's Brahim's daily life. But despite all the physical hurdles, he takes it in stride, both literally and figuratively. Now living in France, Brahim uses his larger-than-life persona to raise awareness about acromegaly, spreading the message that being different is something to celebrate. With feet the size of skateboards and a heart even bigger, Brahim's journey of perseverance and positivity is one that continues to inspire people around the world. Leonidstadnik. Leonidstadnik was a true giant among men, standing at an incredible 8 feet 5 inches tall. His extraordinary height didn't show itself right away. In fact, he was of average size until a post-surgery growth spurt at age 14 sent him skyward. It was like his body decided to take the express elevator to the top floor, and boy, did it deliver. Living a simple life on his farm in Ukraine, Leonid wasn't one for the limelight. While many giants might embrace the attention, Leonid was more interested in tending to his animals and spending time with his mother. Imagine an 8 foot 5 inch man milking cows and feeding chickens. It's like something out of a fairy tale. Despite his towering stature, Leonid remained humble and shy, quietly living his life away from the cameras. Though everyday tasks became Herculean challenges, his warmth and modesty made him beloved by those who knew him. Leonid passed away in 2014, but his legacy as one of history's tallest and kindest giants will never fade. Now let's come back to the heaviest sumo wrestler in the world, Aurora Satoshi. Now let's talk about Aurora Satoshi, a sumo wrestler so massive, he could probably cause a minor earthquake just by walking. Weighing in at an unbelievable 643 pounds, Aurora holds the title of the heaviest sumo wrestler ever recorded. This human freight train was more than just a wrestler. He was a moving mountain, and if you were standing across from him in the ring, you'd probably be wishing for a crane to help out. He is originally from Russia. His birth name is Anatoly Mikakhanov, and he became the heaviest sumo wrestler in recorded history. Aurora moved to Japan and competed in professional sumo there, where he gained fame for his enormous size. While Aurora's size was his greatest strength, it was also his biggest challenge. Moving 643 pounds isn't exactly easy, even for a sumo wrestler. Still, when you've got that much mass, who needs speed? Just let gravity do the work, and your opponents will find themselves flat on the ground. Aurora's diet could make an all-you-can-eat buffet tremble. He'd put away over 8,000 calories a day just to keep his engine running. A meal plan fit for a small village. Outside the ring, Aurora was known as a gentle giant, though chairs everywhere seemed to fear for their lives whenever he sat down. Despite his massive size, he was always humble, with a smile that could light up the room, as long as the room didn't collapse under his weight. Despite his imposing size, fans admire him so much that they've created an entire festival in his honor. The festival, held in Japan, features larger-than-life mascots and images of Aurora as a tribute to his incredible legacy. People come together to celebrate his strength, perseverance, and cultural impact. The mascot seen in this image symbolizes the admiration and joy people feel for this legendary sumo wrestler, turning a festival into a grand spectacle of fun and reverence. Yamamoto Yama Ryuta, a man so large that he could probably block the sun if he stood in front of it. Weighing in at a jaw-dropping 265 kilograms or 584 pounds, Yamamoto Yama, often known as Yama, is the heaviest Japanese-born sumo wrestler ever. His sheer size made him a force to be reckoned with in the sumo world, and once he got into the ring, it was like watching a boulder that no one could move. But here's the kicker. Despite his massive size, Yamamoto Yama had some serious agility. He had a way of planting himself so firmly in the ring that it was almost impossible for opponents to budge him. It was like watching a tank with the precision of a ballerina, crushing any attempts to topple him. Interestingly, Yamamoto Yama has gained a cult following outside of sumo as well. After retiring, he made waves on American television, even appearing on the Ellen DeGeneres show. Whether in the sumo ring or as a viral sensation, Yama's larger-than-life personality has made him a beloved figure. Let's face it, when you're the size of Yama, you don't just walk into a room, you take over the entire floor plan. Which sumo wrestler do you find the most impressive? Do you think size is the most important factor in wrestling? Let us know in the comments below. Like always, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to give us a big thumbs up and leave us some love in the comments section. To keep up to date with all of our awesome videos, be sure to hit subscribe and turn your notifications on to never miss a thing. Until next time, do take good care of yourself.